progress or regress we made in the 72 years after passing, he left us. We call him Uncle Ludwig because we follow Hans von Forster. Hans von Forst calls him Uncle, and there's a story I can tell you later. And here, the first slide I would like to review this fundamental philosophical question of the mind-body problem in previous 400 years. Basically, you have the name of the school of thought here, and you have the responsible person here, and their main point here, and the challenges they're facing here. For example, the topic is really started by Descartes 400 years ago. And so mind versus body, two separate physical entities, two separate entities, and blah, blah, blah. So people kept asking what exactly this thing called mind. So you have different sections of different schools of thought, different people. You have Huxley, Campbell, Watson, Skinner, Boring, many of them, Lewis and Alan Turing. And the latest one I know is David Chalmers, who used to be teaching at Tucson, the Arizona State University. So all this confusion, I have no time to get into them, but you can do internet search if you want to know the detail of the section. But, okay, so our hero here, Wittgenstein, in front of so many confusions and different opinions and diversities, I think conclusively, he said, shut up. So in German, it's Schweigen. So I interpreted what he meant is that the philosophy has a lot of pseudo problems, that the philosophers are confusing each other. So Wittgenstein here, he says, okay, everything is about the language. And this is why we do this session. Recently, a pop songwriter whose name is Dao Lan in China, he's pretty high profile. He wrote a popular song. And in that song, he said, 西方欧干有老板，生而为特根斯坦. Okay, which means in the West, there is a big camp, big factory of steers, and there's their boss gave a birth of somebody who named Wittgenstein. So suddenly the whole China is now asking, who is Wittgenstein? Who is Wittgenstein? So this explains why we do this session. Now, wherever one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. I think that's the very important conclusion. Even after that, Lou pushed that back with Spencer Brown. Okay, so from silent, he blah, 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 deducted the whole word. But still, I think I'm with Wittgenstein at this point, not with Spencer Brown. I became a believer of this sentence, one must be silent. So Lou mentioned the Wittgenstein's idea about philosophy is to shoot the fly the way out of the fly bottle. So that's what we're doing here in Club of Remy. We try to show people how to get out to the real world, doing actual effective actions instead of just talking nonsense. Okay, but to summarize Wittgenstein and to follow the new direction, I would like to point out, not in the tractatus, but in a private conversation that Wittgenstein told his nephew, Hans von Forst. That I think is most important question he raised. He asked Hans von Forst in 1922, just shortly after he wrote the text, that famous book. And at that time, Hans was about 11 years old. 11 years old. The question he asked was, you might know a lot, but how do you know how right you are? Well, roughly that was the rephrase of the question. I still have to dig out what exactly in German he represented that. And that question, I think is really, really important, perhaps more important than just pointing out the confusion of classical philosophy with misuse of language. So for Hans, this is like Einstein's eternal question, what is time? I think Hans kept asking himself this question all the time till he developed experimental epistemology. So for all the philosophers of science, this question also means what is science? Because how do you know how right you are is definitely is a question that every scientist needs to answer. So this question points to the direction, ultimate core concept of truth. How do we find the truth? And how do we get closer to it if we cannot find the truth? So say it again, how do you know what you say you know? And how do you know how right you are? Now here, I need to bring into another figure called Popper. And Wittgenstein and Popper, they too had a fight. If you read their story, they had a fight, and Wittgenstein waved a fire poker at Popper. So that was an interesting story. But both of them influenced or interacted with the Vienna Circle. Okay, and so their thoughts, the valuable thoughts, I really think that they should not fight, but they should unite. So Wittgenstein, Popper unite through here, this guy. Wittgenstein is his uncle, Hans von Forster. So he influenced him. And von Forster influenced this guy. This was in 1986, at my first meeting with Hans von Forster. And so here, Karl Popper had a very, very successful student. It's this guy, George Soros. And you all know his name, and he's now profiled as a very bad guy for the world, but it's not in my perception. This is, I was working with him closely for some interesting project. So Popper's idea influenced Soros, who promoted that idea of reflexivity. And Wittgenstein's idea influenced Hans, who developed second-order cybernetics. Now, I think it is time for this guy, which is 20 years after of me. I will look like that 20 years after. And I think the effort is to combine these two thoughts of, two lines of thoughts together to push forward. So Popper, I think, already passed Wittgenstein in terms of promoting three-word hypothesis. So word one is the physical word, word two is the mental word, and word three is that artificial creation word. I mean, our libraries, our buildings, our knowledge database, our computers, everything created by human, not natural, but by human is here. Everything outside there as nature is here. And everything in somebody's mind is here. So Popper already separated what Wittgenstein said to shut up, and something you cannot say here, you must remain silent. But here, if you notice the relationship with this three word, you have an observation between these two, and you have hypothesis between these two, and you have a validation between these two. All of them come back to Wittgenstein. All these three items, these three lines are language, right? We use language to observe. We use language to promote hypothesis, and we use language to do the validation. So this is another presentation that somebody draw the lines. So from word 2 to word 3, you do writing. From word 3 to word 2, you do reading. And from here to here is your perception, and perception in language. Okay. Chan mentioned that maybe some animals can do this perception as well, but they do not have languages, so they cannot bring it into groups. So here, extended meaning of language. Another presentation of the three words by another person. They say the framing from here to here, observation from here to here, socializing from here to here, and innovation from here to here. All these four items, again, language. So in this sense, I think Wittgenstein and Popper really need not to fight with each other. They are actually mutually complementary with each other. So after 72 years, this is what I think that we learn. Number one, this I need to alert Zhou Beifan. Philosophy is finished, in my way. So don't make any efforts to try to come up with another philosophy, because the world has already too much philosophy. Science used to be natural philosophy, takes over already, mostly. Okay, you can disagree with me, but that's what I currently think. Although I think still the earliest thinking system is a theology for the early primitive human. So theology today still left over and still helps most moral spirit, help the lost moral spirit to gain some sense of a direction. That's the credibility I gave to theology today. And the philosophy is still there. It helps confused mind to return to some order. So I really hope that what Lu was talking about can help confuse the mind and return some order instead of confuse them more, all the mathematics teachers as well. Now, the third generation of human knowledge, science. Science helps to improve quality of life, increase human capacity, and thus drive the progress of civilization. And also, some people may say objection because they see that scientists misusing science to destroy civilization. The dangers and the risks and the phenomena are all there. So that I acknowledge the existence of this thing, but I still think science has the positive side of science still overweight the negative side. Therefore, after we giving up philosophy or put the philosophy back into library or museum, we can focus on philosophy of science. And the philosophy of science should be our center of focus. Therefore, we have Popper started this whole area, and followed by Thomas Kuhn, and followed by Lakatos, and the fourth guy is making trouble. His name is Paul Feyerabender. He's already turning to, how to say, against science. His book is against method, was the title of his book. So even there fight within the field of philosophy of science, different opinions, different school of thought, but still mainstream, we need to go back to Popper, because the fundamental question, fundamental issue Popper highlighted is this demarcation problem. What is science and what is not science? So how do you draw that distinction mark here between science and non-science? And also, what is good science or bad science? And so Popper developed this falsification criteria. And later, this falsification criteria further development of what I call Maturana circle. Our progress since Wittgenstein is that we sort of give up the ontological efforts to the understanding of the world, and starting focused on epistemological understanding of the world. So it's not important about what, it's about how, and how our knowledge, how right our ideas. So how do we reach truth, fact, reality, essence? The old timers would just do head clapping. Okay, I think so. That's how they developed theology, philosophy. And so in the science area, we evolved from a positivism to deductivism and emphasized the hypothesis and emphasized the quantitative measurement. So that is how all efforts to obtaining knowledge really evolved, and we don't need to jump back. The last one, the so-called so advanced one, is what Heinz von Voss calls constructivism. It has some problems, but emphasizes on observer, stakeholder, standing point of a stakeholder, and the different value systems. That is really the area that we need to pay attention to. So this is Maturana. If you put Maturana combined with Popper together, we have this scientific progress circle. You make your observation, you think of interesting questions of whys, and in order to answer why, you do a guess. Okay, hypothesis is a guess. You guess something, and then from your guess, you develop testable predictions, and from that testable predictions, you run experimentation to check, and check, and if it's not right, you refine, change. If it's totally wrong, you abandon. Develop general theories and do it again. So that is, this circle is not clear to Wittgenstein yet. So that's part of the explanation and why his writings are so difficult to read, because his writing, he was trying to get a once for all answer for all the philosophical questions. But unfortunately, he confused more people than make more people clear. Now, I think this circle is more clear than Wittgenstein's did. So expanding both of them, here I just say expanding purpose, three-word hypothesis, but actually it also included all the predecessors' ideas. So here I have some samples of the developmental layer ideas from different perspectives. So Jan Piaget did for developmental psychology. Maslow did the study on the famous Maslow's hierarchy. And Bloom talk about the teaching step by step, or learning step by step, and Kohlberg discussed the step by step development of one's moral system. So all of these examples use a multi-layer step by step structure. So I was simply following them. In 1995, in my discussion about the cognitive scope, I roughly separated the steps into 5 stages. The first stage is awareness. Your cognition system start awareing somebody. I'm aware Beifang is yawning, so because I'm looking at the screen, but that's just awareness, not my concern. Okay. And the next step is based on your awareness, you can develop your concern or your priorities. And based on these concerns and priorities, you, as an active person, you make commitment. And this commitment reflects your value principles. So you will do something first, and you will leave the rest later. Okay. Now, because you have the commitment, you start to develop your skills by learning, by practice, by asking people, little by little. But the bottom line is you have to have commitment before you can have the actual skill of capability of doing what you want to do. And finally, you put all this back to action, to your influence towards the outside world. A simple format would be talking, like what we do here. But they are more than talking. You can do hands-on stuff as well. So that is partly why I, last month at operational research conference, I promoted system altering instead of system thinking. Alter means the observer thinking action altogether. So don't separate them. Don't just do observation. Don't just do thinking. And without observation, without thinking, if you do action, you're a fool. So putting the 3 concept together, altering. It's just a twist of Lao's Dao, right? Tao is Dao. Now, alter is more important than Dao, I think. So, putting this idea back with Popper's three-word hypothesis. Altering starts from information pulling in from my word one, my environment, the part of the word that I can directly interact or I can observe. And process this information within my word two, which is here. Okay, the word two is here, and whatever I bring in, I do some cooking there. And then I output it to word three. Here, Club of Remy is part of word three because we record all our talks. Then some word three accumulated into word one for new generations. So next generation students will find our recording and say, these guys are making sense. So that accomplished the interactive circle. So Popper's three-word hypothesis is already very good. But my ambition is to change into a higher resolution lens. So to make Popper's three words, word one, word two, word three, into 12 words. Why 12? Because in each word, in my mind, I have 4 different layers, at least 4 different layers. For example, the word one in my mind, I call it point one. But the point one is I directly experienced passively since I was born till today. The physical world I passively experienced. Now, second layer would be the active one. I learned from a partial word three. I went to school, so professors told me things, and the library offered me books. So I'm interacting with that, which is different from my direct experience. It's one layer higher. So another layer higher is that I created or I made by me a team, or by me, myself or by a team that we organize as one participant in the action interacting in the word one. So the Club of Remy, the action of Club of Remy is one example. Now, last layer would be there are something unknown to me, untouched by me, but they still exist there. I smartly assume. So even for the word one, we have with a more precise, more resolution, we can divide it into 4 parts. Similarly, for word two and word three, we can use this same 4-layer idea. And why 4-layer is because in the first slide, the previous slide, I said it is 5. The 5th one is action. So here is subtractive action. So we have actually 12 words instead of just 3. So that's my proposal. Also, so in the focus of philosophy of science, we have recently colleagues such as Stuart and Appleby talking about science 2. So science 2, the idea for science 2 comes from the the field of second order cybernetics, so second order science. But I did a more ambitious move by developing the framework of 4 layers of science. So it's not just 1 and 2, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And the distinction between 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, is their focus. The whole scientific efforts focused on their own goals of discovery or invention. So, original science, science 1, focused on finding facts and the natural laws. That's everything here, or all the traditional science fields. Now, emerging science 2 that we had experienced and participated is no more finding facts and the natural laws, but 6 C's. First C would be cognition. Second C would be communication between different cognitive persons. And the third would be conversation. Okay, conversation is more than communication. Conversation is a mutually respected interaction, not a simple communication. Now, after communication stage, we hopefully can enter into a stage called the consensus building. Do we agree or do we not agree? And they are ways and methodologies to help group building consensus. And once you have a consensus, the group start coordination. Chang pointed out that the buffaloes cannot have a conversation. Certainly, they cannot build consensus. But let me remind you that ants have their way to directly reach coordination and the co-construction even. I just saw a video that a group of ants successfully moved a dead 四脚蛇, how do you say? How do you say? Huh?
Lizard.
Lizard, yeah, a dead lizard, like 3-inch long, very heavy. But the group of ants was able to move that lizard through an impossible pathway back to their nest. So that was very interesting how they achieved that. But anyway, that's a little bit of a science too going on there, right? Now, science 2 is for people who have similar goals or within the same community. Now, how about a different group of people competing with each other, playing games? So here, game theory is more than science 2. Game theory assumes that everybody play by the same rule. So let's compete. So competition here for win or lose is the topic that science 3 needs to address. Actually, it is already started by von Neumann and Morgenstein's game theory, and hugely developed by Nash. So currently, using the framework of Nash equilibrium, we see our world more clear than before. Now, the last frontier is that how, in a situation that some group won't play by rule, no rule, no limit. So it is it is the situation of unlimited warfare, unrestricted warfare. I live, you die, or die together situation. In such situation, all the previous signs has nothing to say, and they can do nothing. We need a completely new, different type of science here. That how do we survive in such situation? So this is my last slides. My tractor just version 0.1, because I believe we will continue to develop that. Started from here. So this is a little gift to Uncle Ludwig. Word 1 exists above quantum scale. Well, below quantum scale, we don't know. But we know above quantum scale, word 1 exists. Of course, within the age of universe. But beyond that age, we don't know. So here back to Sclerotis. I don't know. I know something. Okay, the difference is we do know something within the range. Yes, this is we know, but minus cognitive blind. And we also, besides the quantum scale, besides the age of universe, we also have cognitive blind. We have that elephant blind people relationship. We cannot get rid of that. Second one, the number of word 2 equals the number of word population. So we have 70, we have 7 billion people here on the world. So in each brain, there is a word view. Here we have about 10 people. So we have 10 word views here right now. Number 3 is, word 3 is represented by all artificial creations, but with different versions. So each held by its own community as truth. Now here, word 3 inherited from a pauper is not just one word 3. It has different versions. If you don't believe, look at the Palestinian and the Israel. They have totally different version of the word, right? But shared within their community. So that's about the word 1, 2, 3. The different versions of word 3 has at least 3 dimensions. Dimension of completeness. This is from children to adult to educated to top scholars. Here from a chance K-12 student to a loose student in PhD doing laws of a firm, less Spencer Brown, etc. So there's a dimension of completeness. Unfortunately, we cannot require everybody to reach to the completeness. So most of us, it's incomplete. Dimension of ideal reality is within our mind, a spectrum from a fairy tale, wish-wash thinking, to the real world ugly truth. And the third dimension is of interests, perspectives. It's regarding to people's value system, the conflict and clash of them. So talking back to Uncle Ludwig, the most important problem is none of those you previous talking about, but it's even not a language, but It is the compatibility of these different versions of word 3. So the enemy of human civilization is not diversity, but non-compatibility. That is my point. Such as the exclusivity of the Islamic ideology and communist ideology. The exclusivity means if you do not agree, I will kill you. So that is the fact, part of the word. The essence of social system evolution is the replacement of eigenstates formed by interactions among the participatory social forces. And the relationship between the post-eigenstate, new state, and the pre-eigenstate, the previous state, could be reversible or non-reversible. So that will be the non-conclusion of my presentation. Question? Are you with me too?
You suggest, Jason, that that philosophy is over, but how do you know that philosophy is over?
Yeah, let's discuss that. That's a good question. And I think Zhichang is laughing. So what's your idea, Zhichang? You haven't talked to anyone. Yeah. Peter is saying something. Zhichang? Peter? How do I know that the philosophy is there? Look at the, well,
I don't think philosophy is over. You know, if you take philosophy to be the study and analysis of ideas, then everyone needs philosophy, including scientists. We all need philosophy. We all need to think about our ideas and analyze them, be self-conscious about them. So, you know, I agree with Wittgenstein that philosophy is a process and it's not a set of codified, I mean, there are codified problems within philosophy, but mostly it's a process of analyzing one's thoughts. So it's not over. It will never be over as long as human beings are around, at least.
I agree. Yeah, I think philosophy is not an entity there that you grasp it, you are done. No, philosophy to me is, I go back to Socrates, unexamined life that worth living. So philosophy is for everyone to try to examine the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's never be over. It's everyone need to have a philosophy that his brain will try to grasp, because our RAM is so little and you never have enough. To me, it's not philosophy, it's over. You can never have too much philosophy. Our little brain need to expand as much as we can. Philosophy definitely is one of those tools. Another is theology. So I use theology as geometry, okay? If we have a shape and the paper is as big as the shape, you don't have a shape. You have to have a shape on the piece of paper that is bigger than the shape. And then you can solve or prove a geometry by drawing auxiliary lines, which usually a lot of times
I disagree.
Goes out.
My math teacher, let me tell you how my math teacher teaches geometry. He said, class, let's turn off the light. So it's all dark. No, and then he started saying, okay, start imagining there is a line in your mind. You don't have a paper. So yeah, I agree that if you look at the enrollment figure in universities, you still have students sign up for philosophy courses. Yeah, that's true. I was just pushing Uncle Ludwig, pushing Wittgenstein's ideas. Is I'm here to resolve all the philosophical problems. It's all language problems. So
that's what he said early on. Early on, he said he was going to resolve them.
Later he acknowledged this. Okay, Jerry.
Jason, I have one question.
Yes.
What do you think that it's the purpose of philosophy?
What is the purpose of
philosophical thinking? You have,
I think I agree with you.
You
let the fly out of the bottom.
Forms, pragmatism, and so on. What is the purpose of philosophy? Of philosophy,
there's no
philosophical
purpose.
thinking.
There's my purpose or your purpose, right? So I agree with Wittgenstein's purpose. Let the fly out. But we observed some philosophers close the bottle and seal the fly in that. I'll give you example later. But let's hear Jerry.
Yeah. First of all, Jason, I have listened to many of your talks over the past couple of years, and I've really made a lot of sense out of your earlier comments and the way you've massaged them into a systematic form in this talk. And I congratulate you on bringing these together in a coherent form.
Thank you.
It really was a coherent presentation, at least from my perspective, with regard to the nature of philosophy and the role of philosophy in your thinking. I think that people have misinterpreted how you were using the term. You were taking the role of philosophy in the world as a total, as opposed to the its role in the course of human things. That we already have this large variety, and so the question is not of how much philosophy in the world as a total, but how we now quantitate things into scientific methods, etc., that will determine the further progress. So I see it more as that the role of philosophy is in exponential decay. Doesn't mean each individual doesn't have their own philosophy, and there's a necessity for each individual to develop their own worldviews in terms of their experiences, but that in general, there is sort of a logarithmic decay in the role of philosophy as the world further develops.
Thank you. Gerard? Gerard, we need some disagreement from you.
Thank you for your contribution. I must admit that I am, in that sense, confused. Even your starting point, that there are proper starting point, that there are three worlds, to me seems completely not irrelevant, but hypothetical. So the development into 12 types of science, to me, is beyond my grasp. I know only one type of science, and it incorporates maybe many different questions. So I can't really comment in that sense.
Zhichang? You're muted. You're muted. You're not saying anything?
Yeah, I think over the history, many people have different ideas what philosophy is. But I think most of them were located in their own context, and their definition embody their purposes. So because the context, the purpose are different, right? So there's no one best philosophy across all of the circumstances. So therefore, we cannot sort it out. We cannot have one best definition of philosophy if this accepted. So whether philosophy is that or not, is a lot question interesting. That is what my point.
Peter?
I don't know that I have much more to say, except that philosophy is too important to be left to professional philosophers. All of us should be analyzing our thinking and trying to clarify it. I mean, many of the concepts that they've developed over the, millennia are very useful in clarifying our thinking. So I think we'll always have philosophy. Mathematics is a tool for formalizing and making explicit some kinds of ideas, and philosophy is another tool for analyzing general concepts. So I think we're never going to see the end of either mathematics or philosophy, or science for that matter.
Well, in mathematics, they developed handbooks. So from a primary school to high school and to college and to loose level. But the philosophy is really not that well organized. So normally the student will look at the history of a philosophy and pick up something they like and ignore the rest. That's
exactly
situation.
why you want to study some philosophy, in order to be able to sort out ideas.
Don't make your choice. Yeah.
I have one question more.
No more questions. Claudia.
I would like to rephrase my
Boris.
first question. Yes, I would like to rephrase my first question. How do you think brains produce philosophy, science, and so on? How brains produce thoughts? Now we must understand that thoughts are not produced only by observations or outer senses, but it's much more complicated process. For every thinking process you are forming in your mind, it's quite complicated activity of nervous system, So how would you say brains produce philosophy?
In what way are you asking that question? Are you thinking of the brain as a mechanism, and then asking how does a
way, I tell you,
mechanism
first
produce?
way is do this.
Yeah. I think that Luis understands me.
I'm sorry. Can I ask?
Yes.
When you ask, how do brains produce thoughts?
Yes.
Are you thinking of a brain as a kind of mechanism?
No, brain feels, let us say, in Ashby's words, biological machine.
Oh, you are thinking of it as a mechanism then?
It's not a mechanism, because that would be too mechanistic. Computers. It's not.
Well, what is a brain?
Like
So I have to ask then, what is a brain that it could produce a thought?
I didn't understand you.
That's
what I'll say it again. What is a brain that it could produce a thought?
Yes, that was my question. Yes.
What is the number
brains,
a man can
a brain is nervous system, and it's compacted with neurons, with neural nets and so on. Neural nets are producing thoughts and so on.
Yeah, so that's why, Boris, that's why I recommend you to start your session later. You start your session by starting from McCulloch piece, from their model, and then I think it's also more than 70 years. And the development of the 70 years, how that model has evolved. into today's Chat GPT or something like that.
Yes, that would be a machine language, but I did ask that.
So, we're referring to McCulloch and Pitts. What is a man that he may know a number, and what is a number that he may be known by a man? Forgive the sexist casting of that. But and this was in connection with their paper on how we know universals. How is that possible in the brain? This is a 1947, Pitts and McCulloch.
That's right.
There is a whole cognitive psychology and neurophysiology of what's going on in the brain when we have a thought. Like if I say elephant, there are all sorts of images and experiences and related concepts they're going to be activated by hearing that word. Stanislas Dehaene has a book, I think, on the neuroscience of how we know numbers and how we do mathematics, simple mathematics, let's say arithmetic. And so people are studying that. And as far as I can see, the best notions, you'd have to go into the literature on concepts and the current idea of Elias Smith and others of semantic pointers, and look at and people are trying to formulate theories and models of how different concepts exist in brains, in human brains and also animal brains as well. The concept of number is not only a human construct. So that's a whole nother, it's a big another discussion. But
Yeah,
the key problem is just the combinatorics of all the possible ideas that we can have. We're incredibly generative in terms of being able to concatenate and combine, yellow Volkswagens, blue pandas, fictitious and all the different categories that we have, we can combine them in a very rich way. And so it's
That's
a big
certainly
problem.
part of it. Yeah.
The big
that's
problem.
really indeed the next session's topic. Please all come back to Peter's mini course, and there is another one. I think there are two sessions relevant to this topic next month. For the time-wise, I think we can conclude in the English session of this topic, and I think Chang and me will stay with Beifang to have his Chinese discussion of Wittgenstein. If you are learning Chinese, you are welcome to stay. If not, your class is dismissed.
I have a Spencer Brown question for Lou. Maybe we can take this up some other time, but my doctoral work was on the question of emergence and fundamental novelty, and I was always intrigued by Spencer Brown because he seems to be able to, in his formalism at least, describe how new distinctions can come about, if only by reflection, recursion. I was wondering if you've given any thought to how you would make a device based on Spencer Brown's principles, like a physical device that could create new distinctions, and how would we recognize when it had done that? I know that's a big question. Sorry.
The only answers I have to such questions are, I can think of devices, and other people have also, which produce patterns which other people can recognize as new distinctions.
Okay.
And you're familiar with that as well, such as cellular automata of various kinds, or the doing of mathematics brings forth new distinctions, and the help is in the formalism, is in the design interaction with the formalism. But but you can certainly build devices which produce beautiful patterns which you may see, but the device doesn't know about the pattern. And then a next stage would be to imagine a device that could locate the patterns and reflect on them by itself, but I don't know how to build such devices in an effective way that would make. Of course, you see this being done in constricted situations. For example, AlphaGo or Alpha Chess plays beautiful chess and Go, and they are finding patterns and working with them. So they are doing that. So maybe we should reflect on what we're managing to create at this point.
Peter?
Jerry?
Yes, Peter, I think that is really a loaded question in a certain sense. You know,
in every sense.
You know the answer to that already, in the sense that organic chemistry is exactly what happens here, is that you do create devices and they can recognize one another. The key here is the notion of the term device.
Well, yes. So
Yeah.
if you say, if I could have said to him, well, I am a device.
Yeah.
But then am I a device? And I'm even a device that knows how to make such devices, at least by the usual practical human method.
But the difference is that I can go into the laboratory and make a new organic chemical that is unique in this world, and it's a combinatorial object created from known sources that and can be reproduced by others in the same sense of recreating the same device, machine, organic chemical. So there's a symbolic question here of how symbols are being used in conversations.
Sure.
Well, I don't know that the molecule would make a distinction per se. I mean, that's a whole nother issue as well. What it means for a physical system or system under observation to make a new distinction on its world. But I don't, and this is another conversation, obviously, and I don't want to.
Let me follow.
Peter, let me give one quick example. Just a moment. Remember Maturana Varela Uribe's model for autopoiesis, right?
Yes.
So you have a substrate which is just molecular and it bumps around with itself. But it manages to have some catalysts around which things bind, and you get little protocells. And we see those protocells as distinctions that the system brought forth.
Yes.
We do.
We do.
The system knows nothing, but we're like biologists observing the world there. And that seems to be a good first step.
Yeah, I agree with all that. You know, I always argued, I had a lot of polemical arguments with the artificial life people who thought that the life was in the simulation or emergence was in the simulation. And it's really in the head of the people or observers of the simulation who see the new patterns and recognize those things as new patterns.
Now,
anyway,
Peter.
Sorry.
Peter,
Jason has to assert control here.
Peter, Jerry, Lou, do you want to do another session surrounding this?
Yes.
On emergence.